Mr. President, I would like to tell you about the work that is being carried out on your behalf this year to improve the investment climate in our country. You have already noted that it is important for us to look at international experience, international practice, and not to close down. And we also reported to you that the international ratings of the World Bank, the new Be Ready rating, were used here. Using this methodology, we looked at what we would look like, because now the World Bank has looked at and counted only 50 countries. So far it has not included large economies, such as the United States and China. But according to Moscow, if we carried out the entire analysis, we collected all the indicators, the Russian Federation would occupy the 4th position out of 51 countries, including the Russian Federation. This allowed us, among other things, to look at and identify our growth points and strengths relative to other countries that relate to the investment climate, starting from the start of the business, its operational activities, all stages, in fact, of the investor and entrepreneur, and even the issues of liquidation and restructuring of the business. Of course, we have included indicators of national goals in this work, because, of course, this is important for us today, and the task that you set is to increase the volume of investments in fixed assets by 60% by 2030 for our country and for the subjects of the Russian Federation. Therefore, we have reviewed and completed reform indicators at both the federal and regional levels that would help achieve this national goal. And you also know that we report to you annually the results of the national investment rating of the subjects of the Russian Federation, and that the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, you noted the leaders of the rating, Moscow, Tatarstan, Nizhny Novgorod region. But it is very important, Vladimir Vladimirovich, that every year we look at how the conditions for entrepreneurs and investments in the regions are changing, and the lagging regions are growing and catching up with the leaders. And you also noted that Tatarstan and the Nizhny Novgorod region took the 2nd position this year, but their index corresponds to last year's index of Moscow in the 1st place. Everyone is growing up. Everyone is growing, yes, and we have now set targets for the subjects of the Russian Federation, which they should achieve by 2030, as part of our work together with the government of the Russian Federation and the Ministry of Economic Development. This is all about the timing of connection to the electric grid, obtaining a construction permit, leasing land, obtaining the necessary financial support measures for business, issuing the necessary financial support measures for business. And these indicators are the indicators of the leaders, the top 5 leaders of this rating. Today, at the federal level, we have organized work together with all business associations, business representatives, investors, and the government of the Russian Federation in 11 areas. These are issues related to financial stability, financial services for businesses, issues related to human resources, litigation, commercial disputes between businesses, property registration, infrastructure issues, electricity, gas, water, and all necessary connections. And here we have also identified the reforms that we need to advance in international rankings, and again, to ensure better conditions and competitive conditions for entrepreneurs, foreign investors, and Russian investors in the constituent entities of the Russian Federation. This year, you have already set the task for these roadmaps and action plans to be adopted. We have already sent the first package of reforms together with business, which is about 250 measures, to the government of the Russian Federation, and all departments are currently reviewing them. But we are very grateful for the absolutely open and constructive dialogue. In a dispute, the truth is born, and here it is very important that entrepreneurs initiate reforms in this work, Vladimir Vladimirovich, and most importantly, they will also be included in the issues of monitoring and control of law enforcement, as it works both at the federal and regional levels. Let's move on, Vladimir Vladimirovich. It is important for us here to represent our country, not only better in terms of the investment climate, but also the quality of life that you are talking about, and the quality of life in our country today. We also see how it is improving and changing. Even those foreigners who come Also thanks to Decree No. 702, which you signed, who share our traditional values, say that they did not even think about how comfortable and what kind of environment our cities and regions are today. We are also looking at international ratings here, everything related to quality of life issues. Also, Vladimir Vladimirovich, we have synchronized the regional methodology of the quality of life rating with international metrics, with national goals, and with key performance indicators of the governors. Therefore, today all this work is organized at all levels. It is very important that the governors understand which reforms are also needed and which measures and actions help achieve national goals. There are also health issues, environmental issues, and employment opportunities. This year, too, we updated this format of working with the subjects of the Russian Federation, and at the St. Petersburg Forum we presented, in fact, a new regional menu for working with them on management practices. And, Mr. Putin, as I have already said, we are focusing on lagging regions in order to nurture them and help them achieve the performance of the leading regions. We have agreed with the Moscow government here, and we are creating a center for best regional practices, where regional teams from all regions are already coming and exchanging best regional practices in the investment climate and quality of life for several days in an intensive format. And most importantly, they can travel, in fact, and see all the necessary infrastructure that is being created for both investors and residents. This includes the infrastructure of Moscow and, of course, the infrastructure of other regions of the Russian Federation, such as Tatarstan and the Nizhny Novgorod region, where regional teams are also actively coming and learning from each other. Here I am looking at your materials business ready. 3 assessment areas. The regulatory framework is in first place, the quality of services is in first place, and the effectiveness of public services is in 22nd place. What is this? This just means that all that concerns the regulatory framework, there's the availability of certain documents that regulate work or support for investments. And we have everything here. We come first. The quality of public services is just public services and services. We have a lot online today. It's fast and easy for business. But as for the effectiveness of the implementation of services, this is law enforcement and operational activities. This is how business. Sometimes we have laws in place, services work, but for some events business faces administrative barriers. For example, law enforcement practice. Law enforcement practice. For example, in terms of tax administration, we are currently working with the Federal Tax Service here, with the leadership. Be Ready measures the number of hours a taxpayer spends on tax reporting during the year. We have 160 hours, with an average of 130, 120 hours for 50 countries. Now we have agreed in principle. We understand how to move forward in order to reduce to 90 hours per year everything related to the time spent on tax reporting. In other words, this is law enforcement. But in each area, Mr. Putin, we have identified where we have reserves that we can improve together with federal agencies. This is very important, and I would ask you to continue this work, because it is one thing to adopt norms, which we unfortunately face in many areas, but another thing is to enforce them. We need a real return on how they work. I would also ask for your support in this work, because not all areas relate to the activities of the government of the Russian Federation. Everything that concerns, for example, financial services. There are many issues that are regulated by the Central Bank of the Russian Federation. And again, commercial disputes and litigation are the Supreme Court. Here, if you support, you can also allow my colleagues and me to show, maybe, this data that we have received, feedback from the business, and what could be done to, for example, reduce the number of commercial cases in the courts, which are overwhelmed. Nevertheless, how can we arrange for pre-trial mediation? For arbitration courts and groups to work with us, so that, for example, deadlines for commercial disputes are also regulated. We also see that the countries that are in the lead have certain deadlines that regulate, among other things, the evidence base, so that litigation in commercial cases does not last up to 5 years. Because we are also looking at the indicators, there are countries where it takes 3 months, and there are countries where this whole epic lasts up to 5 years for a business. Therefore, if possible, we would also do the same work with our colleagues in this part. Good.